So firstly, the Victorian e-Research Strategic Initiative, where I work, VERSI, is a Victorian government initiative to promote the uptake of e-research across Victoria. We do a lot of work in the universities, all kinds of different things related to e-research, a lot of data capture from scientific instruments. And in this respect, this project is kind of quite similar, except that instead of having a scientific instrument, we're dealing with archival records. And in a sense, for the humanities and social sciences, the contents of the Public Record Office collection and similar archival collections form a kind of a potential data set, and this application is something rather like a scientific instrument. That's the plan, anyway. Okay. Over to you.
Right, and just a few words about Public Record Office Victoria. We're the State of Victoria's archival authority, established under the Public Records Act 1973. We take custody of permanent public records, and they're records created by Victorian government agencies that are regarded as being of permanent value. So prov also determines what records need to be kept and what records, and for how long, and what records can be destroyed, and sets record keeping standards for government. So another really important part of our role is to make records accessible. So I'll just go through some of the ways that we do that. We have 2 reading rooms, one in North Melbourne and one in Ballarat, and through those reading rooms people can access original physical records, and our collection goes back to the 1830s. We've had an online catalogue in 2001, and you can order records through that catalogue, and there's a lot of there's a volunteer program at prov for creating indexes to records. So we've got a lot of online indexes, and they're heavily used by researchers. There's an ongoing project to record what we call item level metadata, sorry, item descriptions, and that's and so we're in a work in progress for itemising records in the collection. We've still got hundreds and hundreds of paper lists that we're converting into data. We put up, we've built spaces on our website for researchers to share information about their research experience and about information that they find in the records and the results of their research. So our wiki is a great place for people to share that sort of information. We've also got a digitisation program, so slowly but steadily we're imaging records, creating the metadata for them and making them available online. We built our digital archive and launched it in 2005, which is a part of our Victorian Electronic Records strategy. And that was built for the long-term storage of the state's electronic public records, but we also store our digitised records there. Speaking of digitised records, here's a gorgeous record of a street in Ballarat, because what I want to share with you is a typical journey to find records in our collection, as a way of illustrating some of the reasons that we've built our pilot software and why we have embarked on this project. So this is a record from 1859 of, I think it's about page 1, of a rate book record in Ballarat. For those of you who aren't familiar with this sort of record, it's got amazing research data in it, and these are very heavily used records. They're heavily used by a really wide range of researchers who ask quite different questions of the records. So I'll just point out a few excellent things in this record. Excuse me, Connell, I don't want to blind you. Here we've got a description of a property, the owner, occupier, and this section and allotment number will correspond to a parish plan for a record. That's administrative data by the Crown Lands Department used to identify the property. And here's the valuation. Sorry about the noise. So these are annual valuations. So what you get over time is a beautiful layering of people, place, description of property, and the valuation. So naturally, you can ask a lot of, if you can extract that data and put it into a form, a format, like a database or even a spreadsheet, you can ask some really great questions of it or tell some excellent stories. So currently we have, there are many people going about this work day in, day out, either, and usually in a reading room. Okay, how do they find this record? They will look for it on our online catalogue, and this is a typical sort of page in our catalogue for a generic, or for a rate book series, because there's lots of them. And they'll navigate to this page, and then you can see here is here's your metadata. So if I'm researching, let's say, Sturt Street, I'm going to have to know that it's in that volume. I won't be able to tell by any descriptive information. Anyway, I'd log on, order the record, go to Ballarat Archive Centre where this series is held on a Monday or a Tuesday and take my notes. And then take my notes home with me. Or I could log on to this gorgeous pilot software site, navigate to a page in the site, and take my notes online. So what you can see here is a direct transcription of this data. So clearly there's a few advantages to being able to do this online. It's really important that, well, a fantastic advantage is that other people can use your data and you can use other people's data. You can copy down what you want and other people can do their bit, and you might get a nice complementary round picture, or you would just transcribe the parts that you wanted. And once we've implemented it, you'd be able to mark up fields, you'd be able to mark up components in this and assign categories to them, but Connell will tell you a bit more about that.
So to give a bit of background to the design of the software and the requirements for the software architecture, let's have a look at a page from the National Library's Trove digitised newspapers collection, which is also in a sense something quite similar. It's a crowdsourced transcription application. What they do at Trove is these newspapers are digitally imaged, and they use OCR to do an automated transcription of the text. And of course, because those are newspapers, it's possible to actually do that and get a reasonable amount of accuracy. Nevertheless, there are quite a lot of errors, and the Trove application provides a user interface for people to register themselves with the site, log on, and make corrections. So often you'll find, particularly in the margins of the newspapers, the OCR will be really poor, and depending on the age of the newspaper and the quality of the printing press that they had, you may have more or less corrections to do. So if you look at this page, you'll notice this is actually a page about Sturt Street, the very same street that we were looking at a moment ago in the rates assessment. Sturt Street, Ballarat. It's a street that would grace any city in the world. It's a fabulous street. If people know the street, it's a wonderful street. It does have a well-made roadway, and notice it does mention here the Post and Telegraph Office, the Town Hall there, which is one of the buildings that was listed in the previous slide. We actually have a valuation for the Town Hall, which is mentioned right here. And so I think this points out something quite interesting about the nature of these data sets, if you want to see them as e-research data sets. On the one hand, we have the National Library's newspapers. On the other hand, we have these rates records. They are, in a certain sense, about the same thing. Here we have this particular building, which if we can assign and identify to the Town Hall, then we have the possibility of being able to navigate between these two collections, in a user-friendly and very simple way, possible to actually provide researchers with the ability to get on kind of an overview and to find out related information that may be of interest to them if they're doing research into Sturt Street or into the Town Hall, for instance. This article comes from about 15 years, I think, after the valuation that we just saw. But one thing to notice with this transcription is that it is just plain text. We have the only kind of structure that's in the plain text transcription is the individual lines of text. There's not even any paragraph markers. It's basically line by line. And that's something that would be an issue for the Public Record Office records, because so many of them are actually tabular in format. And that's because the prov records, many of them are, they represent data that has been gathered by state agencies and in a very regulated and ordered way. And so they have pre-printed forms which they fill things out. And if this data were being collected today, and of course it is being collected today, but where it's being collected today, it's generally being entered directly into a database or into a spreadsheet or some structured, electronic information system. And so if you were looking at that rates record from a few moments ago, if that were around today in the 21st century, it would be a spreadsheet. And what we are effectively trying to do here is to uplift this record from its paper form through a digital image and eventually turn it into what is effectively a database or spreadsheet. So this, what I'm showing here on the slide here is a little piece of transcribed text, and this is a piece of that very same rates record using an XML-based markup language called TEI. This is text encoding for interchange, and it is the relevant international standard for marking up and encoding historical textual material. People use it for all kinds of things, from manuscripts to medieval manuscripts, Roman inscriptions, books and letters. All kinds of different documents can be marked up using this particular XML format. And so what it provides, what the TEI format provides, if you like, is a kind of a useful abstraction for us. As if putting on my software engineer hat, I see it as a component that is kind of quite central to the design of the application. If we can have information being encoded in this form, then it's very easy to take that information out and represent it in some other form. So it's a useful part of the system. And so what we're attempting to do is to capture this information from the user directly into a TEI document. Okay. The next example is another crowdsourced transcription service which does use TEI. This is from University College London, and it's a project called Transcribe Bentham. It's a project about the works of Jeremy Bentham, who was, I believe, was one of the founders of UCL. He certainly had a history there, and they even have his body in a cabinet. Anyway, so they have his whole papers. Yes, they have not just his papers, but also his actual physical body. So his papers have all been digitally imaged, and the UCL people have set up this website as a way of transforming that textual material into some more useful form. And as you can see, his handwriting is abysmal. Even for people who are used to reading, 19th century handwriting. This is pretty dire. I had a go. I signed up because I, in the process of doing this project, signed up to half a dozen different crowdsourcing transcription applications to try them all out. I managed to transcribe it. As you can see, this is my work here on the left. This is my work here. And as you can see, we have here not just plain text, but also some tags in angle bracket, and these are the TEI elements of TEI markup, which effectively assign some particular meaning to the text that they enclose. So if the people are familiar with XML, this is pretty obvious. If you're familiar with HTML, again, it's very much the same, except just the tags' names are different. So we have here a tag such as unclear. This word, I couldn't make it out. Looked like Rutland, but I had no idea. There's some stuff which he's written, finding out the offender, which he's then deleted with a line through, and that del tag marks the fact that that deletion occurred. So there's quite a lot of tags in TEI, hundreds and hundreds in fact. So you can actually encode all kinds of different meanings, all kinds of different semantic information can be captured and represented in that form. And that's one of the things that makes it really suitable for a project like this, in that we're dealing with public records which may be about all kinds of different things, from groundwater records and water wells through to rates records and so on. So going back to the goals of the project then, really what we were aiming to do here is to excuse me, is to support a wide range of e-research communities, people who might be of interest, who might have some interest in the data. They might be archaeologists, they might be historians, they might be architects, they might be city planners, they might be geologists or hydrologists or anything. So what we're trying to do is something quite generic, which can be of use to a large number of different people, being able to capture data in a form which is flexible enough to meet the needs of all of those different people, and using a user interface that is user-friendly enough so that we can recruit a whole lot of people whose interest may be only quite tangential, but be able to capture their contribution from that whole, across that whole community. So the people involved in the project, the two groups really, firstly what we have brought to it is the technical expertise, the hosting. We actually hosted this application on our server at the Melbourne Uni, and Prov obviously have brought the actual digitised records themselves, and also all the archival experience and knowledge and the project management. Thank you, Abby. Over to you.
Right. So just an overview of what we did in the project. Requirements, probably don't need to say a lot about that. Probably all familiar with that. We selected a platform and got one going, which is great. So we selected records that were data rich. I've just shown you the rate records, but we've also got a journal of the Chinese protector on the Victorian goldfields in the 1850s, which is much more of a plain text record. So we selected records that were of interest to people researching in the Ballarat area, and we got support from the Ballarat City Council to use the rate records in the project, because the City Council owns the copyright. So they've been really thrilled for us to use the records in the project, which has been great. Yeah. So we invited people at Prov who were volunteers to image the records. So that was great too. And we had some workshops with our user groups. And what did we learn, Connell?
A bunch of things. One of the things that I learned was that we really did need to adopt a strict client-server architecture, where the transcription editor, that the user interface that people actually use to do the keyboarding, had to be kept quite distinct from the data storage infrastructure underneath it. And the reason is a number of reasons, but obviously because you might want to change your data storage and wheel out one platform and replace it with another one. The other thing is that the user interface itself has to be extensible in a mashup style because we want to be able to add new kinds of tools for doing new kinds of markup. For instance, you might want to mark up financial values, you might want to mark up geospatial coordinates. All of these kinds of things might involve wheeling in new user interface widgets. And so a software application which had that kind of architecture that was extensible was also crucial. And a third thing was we realised that there was not going to be one single schema that we could use to capture every kind of document because these documents are all over the place. So whatever we came up with, it had to be a system where the administrators could actually specify what kind of schema, what sort of markup were they interested in this particular series, and for this series, what kind of markup would be appropriate. What else did we learn?
Well, people, our user groups were dead keen to get on with it, and they wanted lots of functionality, so they translated into more requirements. So yes, going to finish soon. So one of the key requirements was to sort of bust up the different jobs into different tasks and be able to offer them in terms of complexity, topic, etc. And people were really keen to be able to see what they had done themselves, to really quickly be able to call that up. They wanted to see what others were working on, and I suppose you could say have a social media approach to the work that they're doing online. So we're just, some of the reflections that we've made on the potential of this, that we've learnt through the project, is that we really see it as a data set that can keep on growing and keep on being enriched. Again, one that people can see the work that they've done, and it's a place where researchers, the effort that's going on right now is consolidated in this place, if people choose to do that, and also that the new people who haven't had a lot to do with records can find a really enjoyable way to discover them.
And finally, we decided that we do have to make sure that the data that people actually capture and is encoded in the system is encoded, with some rich semantics, so that researchers can actually get some real value out of it. And we have to be able to provide that information in an accessible way, in a programmable way, exposing that data through an API, and being able to transform it into a linked open data so that it can be joined up with a much larger web of knowledge. So that's it. If anyone's interested in the project, they can always get in touch with us through the website, prov.versi.edu.au, or get in touch directly with Prov or with me at Versi. Thank you.